We avoided watching kids get dropped off under the sign that identified the building as Faith Children's Home. Watching it play out reminded all of us of the day that we too were dropped off under that flickering blue and white sign, and none of us wanted to remember that day or the feelings of the abandonment that it brought. We had been given a heads up about this family that was coming because the story they carried with them is still to this day too heavy to comprehend. One minute they were a family of 6, and the next a family of 4. Just the children remained. They had become orphans in fewer than 60 seconds. All the news articles and news coverage told of how their mom had taken their life with a single gunshot. The boys ran into their home just in time to watch their dad do the same. Their sister was at a friend's house, frantically trying to get in touch with her parents because she knew something was wrong. To us, though, they were more than a story. Now they were part of us, a tribe of kids at a children's home that experienced some pain in our short lives. Many of us were ready to absorb this family's pain. It's a bit of an unspoken rule in trauma land. It's not a healthy one, but empathy becomes the strongest sense of a trauma survivor. When the car left them, I met her at the double doors that led into the giant dining room. The strong memories of walking into that room for the first time myself assaulted me, but I wanted her to know that she was already loved. Her energy was impossible to ignore. Her brothers watched her walk into the girls' sides of the industrial side of the building that we call home. They watched until she rounded the corner and they could not see her anymore. They had been to war together, and suddenly they were safe. All of them struggled to hide their confusion and pain. I caught the eye of one of her older brothers, and we both nodded in a trauma language that meant he knew I had her back. None of them looked like they trusted that they were loved or safe. I wanted her to know that she was both, because as trauma survivors, we know our people. We speak a language that sometimes can serve as an analgesic for the pain. And so we chatted away as we put away everything she owned in this world in one dresser and one small closet. She had become everybody's little sister, and by looking at her, you would never know that she had experienced such tragedy. We never talked about it in those days, specifically until years later when I reconnected with my little sister on Facebook. After many years of connection, I began asking her about that fateful Florida Sunday, and this is what she told me she remembers. She remembers going to church that horrible Florida day. She remembers her mom crying and leaving church during the service. She remembers multiple separations of her parents and continued violence in her home. She remembers her parents fighting when they got home that day, and she blames herself because she thinks it's about her. She remembers continually calling home when she was at her friend's house because something was just not right. She remembers when someone finally answered the phone. She remembers the distraught person giving her the news that suddenly made an orphan. She didn't see it like her brothers did, but she remembers. My friend and little sister, trauma survivor extraordinaire, Anna Marie Rivera Alberts, who remembers that day and everyone after it and bravely wants to share her story here because Wednesdays with Watson is the healing zone.
Hey guys, you are listening to the Wednesdays with Watson podcast. This is the place where we chronicle the crooked roads that highlight faith, love, hope, and all of its cousins. We have named this second season PTSD, Jesus, and You. We ask hard questions and sometimes come away with no earthly answers. Today's guest and story is likely to help one of you out there in podcast land because Wednesdays with Watson is the healing zone. And if you want to have a front row seat to healing stories, I do invite you to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Hang out here until the end of the episode because you never know what surprise may be waiting for you there. Now, as Paul Harvey said, for the rest of the story. Okay, hi, Anne Marie. You just heard me read your story, which was difficult for me to do because we have a bond, and the readers already know that we were in the children's home together. And so you just heard me read your story, but I first want to start on something that, and if you hear kids in the background, that's just the way it rolls. She has kids, but I appreciate you doing this with me on a Sunday. And so, but first things first, I got to talk football with you. Right.
I'm sorry about your Ravens. I was rooting for you guys. I was rooting for the Ravens. Two of my Jaguars are on your Ravens right now. So I'm sorry about the Ravens.
It's all good. At least
But
Tampa's there.
yeah, at least Tampa's there, which is it's kind of interesting that you bring that up because that is how we know each other. And so let's just drop right into this because I know my listeners want to know. They want to know the rest of the story. And so I want to be really careful with your story for a lot of reasons because you still do have three brothers that will listen to this podcast. But I want to hear in your own words, and you could say I decline to answer that, but whatever you want to do, this is about you. But you heard me read your story. You were not there the day that this happened. Tell me what it was like for you when somebody finally did answer the phone, because you kept calling the house and kept calling the house, and somebody finally answered the phone and told you what happened. Tell me in your own words what you want our listeners to know about that moment in time.
It was that moment in time that you realize that life as you know it is no more. What I had grown up with and around wasn't going to be there anymore. The two that I had come to know, even in the situation of the violence growing up, was still my world, and it was gone, just like that.
Just like that. Like I said, in fewer than 60 seconds, probably. You were 11 years old. You're 11 years old. I remember 11-year-old Anna Marie as I read. I just remember when you guys first came. As you know, this podcast is about PTSD. Have you ever been officially diagnosed with PTSD?
I personally have not.
You have not. Okay.
Mm-mm.
And that's not uncommon. And we're going to get a little bit to some reasons for that later in the interview. But so you have not been diagnosed with PTSD. Do you know if any of your brothers have?
I think Angel might be the only one who has been clinically diagnosed. If I go based off of what I know about PTSD personally,
right.
I could definitely say, my older brother Joseph and Isaac probably has his fair share as well. And I'm not going to deny that I don't suffer from it. I just never been
diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are, and you know a little bit more about PTSD than the average Joe because you're married to a Marine who just retired after 20 plus years, and who also, so you know. But tell me how, and we're gonna run through a few of these questions I ask everybody because there's a certain place I want to get to you, and I know the listeners want to as well. But one of the things that I get the most is people want to know, how does the trauma affect you today? How are you doing today? Because it's been like, gosh, 30 years. 30 years.
1989.
Yeah, so 1989, so 30 years. How does it affect you today?
I probably over the years it's affected me differently. If I could say the way I feel it affects me now. And when I say affects me, I'm talking like the loss of my parents.
Right.
Is I don't have them for my children. Yeah. I don't have them. So like if I just want to pick up the phone and say, hey, Mom, what's going on? How's it going? Or, hey, you want to come by and see the kids? I don't have that. I don't have that parental support.
How have you explained to them where your parents are?
Oliver doesn't really know yet. Again, he's only 6. Xavier knows, and he knows what happened. And we do talk about it more so now, since we do own handguns in our house. But he's aware.
Yeah.
The way he interprets it is totally different than I would have at that age. So.
And he's about that age now. How old is your oldest now?
He just turned 13 last year. So yeah.
So 2 years older than you were when this happened. Mm-hmm. Wow. I want to follow that with this question. What is the most frustrating part of your story? Like, people listening to this podcast, you have a microphone and people are listening. What do you wish they knew about the story of the Riveras? Or maybe a better way to frame that question is, what would you immediately do if a family like yours was brought to you? What do you want the world to know in situations like this? Because unfortunately, murder, suicides, double suicides are just, they're
everywhere.
They're everywhere, right? So as someone, as an 11-year-old who lost both of her parents to a double suicide, what do you wish the world knew about your story? What frustrates you the most about what they don't know?
What frustrated me the most is, surprisingly, is going to be the people who felt sorry for me. I didn't want the pity. I didn't want you to be my friend because my parents were, deceased. I didn't let it consume me. So I feel as though I've kind of fared better with dealing and coping. I don't believe I ever had any type of counseling except for whatever we did in the children's home.
Yeah, we're going to get to that too. But so I want to follow with this question. There are people that will be listening, no doubt, because you're on my podcast, that love you, that maybe you guys just don't talk about it, or maybe, and you just said part of it. I don't want you to pity me. I don't want you to be my friend because of this story. And I'm like that too. Most children's home kids are. But you've got the mic and you're talking to some people that you wish you could articulate some things to. What would you say to them?
We're no different than you. We're the same. We just have a different story to tell. I'm here for a reason. You know what I mean? Like my story is going to help somebody. I don't know who, I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know how many. But when I read those stories, like you said, it happens all the time now. When you read those stories, my heart breaks because who knows who those people have? Who do those children have that have been in the same situation or going through the same thing I've been through?
Right.
It's tough because you want to run and go home and hug your mom and dad and you can't.
I'm so sorry.
That's the stuff that I miss. And when I talk to people, and I think since you and I have been in contact, I do talk to more people about what I've gone through in a very open sense. And sometimes they look at me like, oh my God, how did you go through that? And here you are. Like, that's unheard of. Like, how did you deal with it? And here you are. And I would never know the path that you came from.
Yeah, because I'm looking at you across the Zoom. I follow you on Facebook. I see this beautiful family that you have, and you absolutely have. As This Is Us. I don't know if you watch This Is Us, but there's making lemon out of lemonade or lemonade out of lemons, and then there's what you've done in your life. And I am so proud of you. And I just remember that day when you came to the children's home, and people can't see you; they'll see your picture, but you are of Puerto Rican descent, and you had the funniest, just biggest hair. I will never forget the biggest hair you had. But
I'll send you a picture of that one.
Oh, trust me. I've got the yearbooks out. We will be posting pictures. But I'm looking across, thinking the same thing. Like, how did she go through this? How does she? We hear your kids calling you mom in the background. You just love those kids so much. But in some ways, you rally against everything I've been preaching on this podcast, because we talk about 3 C's. We talk about church, we talk about counseling, and we talk about community. Now, you already told me, except for what we've gotten in the children's home, I haven't gotten any counseling. I know that you have a strong community because you're a military wife. You're an Army wife. You work at Target. I love the pictures that I see you post on Target. People love you, so you do have a community. So, do you go to church at all?
I have not been probably in a very long time.
And that's fair, and quite a few of us haven't. But so one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on is, so now we've landed at community, really. So you're not actively going to church. You've not gotten any counseling. So community has helped you. Can you tell me how community helps you?
It takes a village.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, in times when, like, my husband was deployed and it was just me and Xavier, I had to depend on my community, my friends that I made through the Marine Corps, the friends I made through Xavier's school with meeting other parents. They are the ones that had gotten me through at least my adult years with having family.
Yeah.
When I didn't have family, my husband's family, they've been there. They'll always be there. It's just sad for me because I feel like still back, that thought's always in the back of my head. Do they love me for me, or do they love me because of my story?
Oh my word, girl. There's this
and there's no, you know what I mean? It just,
and so you perform, right? And so you do, and you're the best. Like I just, yeah, like
you keep going.
You keep going, and I watch you like do these amazing things. You're an amazing cook. I mean, at one point you were working 2 jobs. You're an amazing mom. You also have had some trauma which we don't even have time to talk about, and many losses of pregnancies. But you keep marching on, and yet you don't go to church. And we're going to get there for a second, because I wanted you on the podcast because I don't want everybody to think, well, I don't go to church, so I can't have hope like Amy has. Well, I want people to know that you have identified right now, at least in this interview, that the community has been the strongest thing to get you through. And I understand what you're saying when you say, but I always wonder if they love me for me, or they love me because of the story. And it's really interesting you bring up that point. And there's a beautiful song by J.J. Heller, who that it starts out with, he sits in the corner, so nobody sees, because he has the story that no one could believe. And the chorus is, who will love me for me, not for who I will become or who I was, who will love me for me. And as a co-trauma survivor with you, being in the children's home, I struggle with that too. Like, are you friends with me because I have this story, or do you love me because I woke up and breathed air this morning? And
right.
So we have to be careful in that with community. And I'm glad that you've landed on some people, especially with Brian's parents, who you feel do love you for you. So now I have some hard-hitting questions to come at you.
Okay.
Have you forgiven your parents?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can tell you exactly when.
Tell us that story, because I think that journey is important to what I'm looking at across this screen.
So because I wasn't there when everything happened, back in 2009, I reached out to the Citrus County Sheriff's Department to find out if they had anything on record from that day that could help me and give me closure. The only thing they had left were the crime scene photos. And then I went the next step, and I got the autopsy report. And my husband was deployed, and he begged me not to open it. Don't look at those pictures till he's home. But I had to. I needed to see what my brother saw that same day. And I put the CD in the computer, and I remember clicking through the pictures, and I just knew. I knew right then and there what I had always thought was, they're okay. You know what I mean? Like, they were at peace. They didn't hurt no more. He couldn't hurt her anymore. She couldn't hurt him anymore. And it was January of 2010 that I was good.
Wow. And then did you forgive yourself? Because I know growing up with you in the children's home that it was hard for you, even when we were at the children's home and the story was told as we traveled in churches. The 3 boys kind of got the highlight. And then there's Anna Marie, who was at her friend's house. She got, and I'm air quoting, spared from seeing. Right. And so I know that you really struggled with not being there. Have you forgiven yourself?
I think as an adult, looking back on it, I know that it wasn't my fault.
Right. And I think
and I think that was a big factor with also needing that closure with the autopsy reports. You know, if they had a crime scene report, I would have loved that. But because it was deemed suicide, they had gotten rid of that 5 years prior.
Well, and I wonder if when it was finally deemed suicide, because when we were told the story at first, it was murder-suicide. Was it easier for you to deal with when you found out that it was suicide?
I don't believe it was suicide. And that's based off, that's based off the autopsy report.
Does that bring peace to you, or does it make it hard?
It did.
Okay.
It did, because I never thought my mother would ever do something like that. I never thought she had it in her to do that. I've never been one to suffer from mental health issues, so I don't want to downplay that either. But as a mom with my own children, I don't think my life could get that bad where I need to take it.
Yeah.
And when I read the autopsy report and it talked about the trajectory path of the bullet, I knew right then and there, for me, that it was what we always thought it was, which was murder-suicide.
Well, and you had seen that in your home. There was violence constantly
Correct.
in your home. And so you had every reason to believe that.
Right.
Sure. So as we end the podcast, we were, that children's home that we were in was called Faith Children's Home. And we saw a lot of really cool things happen there. And we learned faith. We learned what that meant. This podcast is about hope. Well, as it turns out, hope is a close cousin to that word faith. And what I am looking at across the screen is Hebrews 11:1 is faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And so I want to ask you a hard-hitting question here, because we were taught about Jesus, and this podcast is about Jesus being the star of the story. You don't have any reason to hope or to believe in the star of the story. But here is my question to you. Do you still believe that Jesus is sovereign and that he is still God no matter what?
Yes.
Do you understand why you could still believe in him?
Some days I do, some days I don't.
Yeah. I always ask every guest when they come on for a song, and you sent me one of my favorite by For Him called Why. And there's a refrain in that says, I know down here I may not understand, but I won't let go of that unseen hand. Is that what you're telling me today, that you won't let go of that unseen hand?
I don't think I have. I think even though I don't go to church, I still listen to Christian music. It still touches me in ways that like the secular music does not. So something's there.
Yeah. Have you asked him why?
Not lately.
Yeah. Sometimes we're not ready for those answers.
That could be.
Yeah. And sometimes there isn't an answer. And that's hard. I actually live in the county where this happened. And when we're promoting this episode, I will go stand on the grounds of the church that you guys were in that morning. And it is so amazing to me. And literally, people are going to be so helped that listen to my podcast, because they say the same thing. I don't go to church. I'm not in counseling. We all have a community. And I do think that has helped you through this. But not letting go of that unseen hand is something that you need to be very proud of. When people ask you how and why you can still have this beautiful family by going through this, it is because you have not let go of that unseen hand. And I just want to tell you how proud I am of you for that, because everybody's healing journey is different. But I've not yet been able to find somebody doing as well as you are. No counseling, no formal PTSD diagnosis, no church community doing as well as you are. And there's only one explanation to that, and that is your refusal to let go of the unseen hand. And so I just want to thank you for coming on today. I want to end by telling you the same thing that I tell everybody. You're special to me because you're like a little sister to me, but I see some things in you that I do. You're younger than I am, but you work hard. And you run wide open. And I just want you, as you move forward in life and as you process this, one day, if it ever hits you like it did me, to take the time to take care of you, because you matter. And what I've seen you do over the course since we reconnected on Facebook is just live life wide open. Do I think that you've addressed the pain? Yeah. But do I think that there's a day of reckoning where do I think you're going to be in a psych ward like me? No, but I do think that there will be a time when you will sit with this a little bit more, but that time will come when that time is supposed to come. And until it does, I want you to know that people in this world see you, they know you, they love you, they hear you, they value you. I especially do. And when you said to me, I don't know how I could still believe in Jesus and the star of the story, it is Hebrews 11:1. It is faith. just like that flickering sign that I watched you come underneath, Faith Children's Home, blue and white flickering sign, must have been bugs in it, Faith Children's Home. It is faith in the star of the story. It is Hebrews 1 faith. You have no reason to have faith that the star of the story existed, having experienced what you experienced, but it is Hebrews 11:1. It is the substance of the things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So with that, I end this with asking you, what is your biggest hope, whether it's on this planet or the next planet, as you are living out faith and believe in the star of the story when there's no reason for you to? What are you looking forward to the most, and by way of hope moving forward?
I want to see them again one day.
Yeah. No more pain, no more sorrow, no more tears. And you will. I believe that you will. And what you need to know is what you've done here today is brave. It is admirable. I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. And I want to continue to be part of your healing journey because it is different than mine. But the thing that we have in common is both of us, even at the children's home, there were times when we questioned whether God was really sovereign, because we're surrounded by so many kids and so many stories like yours. We're like, where were you, God? Well, the fact of the matter was he was there. And that is hard to reckon with. One of the ways that I reckon it with is even Jesus, the Father turned his back on him because he had to, because that needed to happen for the expansion of the gospel. And what you've done here today, people are going to listen to this and go, so I don't have to sit in church every week. I don't have to go to counseling as Amy's been preaching. I can still be okay. The one thing that's still in common is the star of the story. And he loves you more than anything. And I just want you to know that. Would you like to add anything before we end?
No, thank you. Thank you for letting me share my story.
Anytime. There's somebody out there like you right now. What would you say to him?
It gets better.
It gets better. It does get better, doesn't it? It does get better. All right. Well, I love you. Thank you so much.
Love you too.
So, Anna Marie, I tell people all the time to listen to the end of the episode, and here's why. So that we leave people on a happy note, even though you told them it gets better, and it does. But there is an announcement, a giveaway announcement, and you get to announce that. So what is the giveaway announcement?
If you'd like to be entered to win a $50 Amazon gift card, shoot Amy an email on her website.
Perfect. Yes. And that will be that drawing. This episode will drop on February the 10th, and the drawing will come on 2/28. So send me an email, amy@amywatsonauthor.com. Anna Marie, thank you again. I love you.
You're welcome.
Continue to stay with the star of the story. And I'm going to keep harassing you about counseling.
That's fine.
And never going to leave you. Just like that day when I helped you unpack all the stuff that you had. Always going to be here for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Love you.
All right. Love you. Hey guys, as usual, I just want to thank you for spending a few minutes of your time with us. Time is the one thing that we are not making more of, and so it is not lost on me what an honor it is that you take the time to listen to this little podcast that just wants to help people. I would also like to thank our guests today. I hope that the powerful story that was brought to your earbuds resonated with you and gave you hope. If it did, I would also be so honored if you would share that podcast with somebody, share the link with somebody that may be helped by the message that you heard today. Also, while you're in your podcast app, would love it if you would hit that subscribe button so that every episode, every 2 weeks, just comes straight to your phone. Also, there is a fun group on Facebook called Wednesdays with Watson. Would love for you to join that, and we will see you over there. All other social media is Amy Watson Author, except for Instagram, which is Author Amy Watson. You can reach me in all the places, usually all at one time. I would love to thank our executive producer, Amy Hyland. She is doing an amazing job of these episodes. And Phil Baker, that's his song, Marked by You, off of his album, Babylon, that you hear playing us out of the podcast. Until I see you in 2 weeks, you know what I'm going to say. Let the healing continue.
So let my life glorify you and teach me to walk beside